through which we can realize our higher self, that which is beyond the mind. So, in the last talk, I had read out to you a paragraph from the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, wherein he narrated his first experience that was revealed to him in the temple of the Divine Mother at Dakshineshwar in Calcutta. And we try to understand it through some concepts and ideas. There's another way of approaching truth, not through words and explanations, not through the intellect, but through the faculty of imagination and visualization. We naturally communicate through images, but where images are not possible, that's why we say a picture is worth more than 1,000 words. And if you're trying to narrate to somebody what you're seeing through so many words, that person on the other side who's listening forms a picture in the head. At the end of the day, that image is retained in the mind, not the words that are there. Can we do that visualization right up front? So I would like to try this out now, and for you to do this a couple of times during this week when we meet, and see how this approach of meditating, not conceptualizing, visualizing the truth. So I would like you to put yourself in the place of Sri Ramakrishna, who had that particular experience himself. And you say, suppose this revelation happened to me, what would I see? All right? So he said, the Divine Mother revealed to me in the Kali temple that it was she who had become everything. She showed me that everything was full of consciousness. The image was consciousness, the altar was consciousness, the water vessels were consciousness, the door sill was consciousness, the marble floor was consciousness, all was consciousness. I found everything inside the room soaked, as it were, in bliss, the bliss of God. I saw a wicked man in front of the Kali temple, but in him also I saw the power of the Divine Mother vibrating. That is why I fed a cat with the food that was to be offered to the Divine Mother. I clearly perceived that all this was the Divine Mother, even the cat. Now, you might be sitting in your own place, at your homes, wherever you are, and you imagine that you have this faculty of having that particular experience, that everything which is an object in front of you, really behind the name and form, everything is filled with that same consciousness, undivided. Right? And that experience was for him in that Kali temple, but that's not where it ended. Thereafter, wherever he went, so he was always aware of that divine presence, of that consciousness. That which he was experienced by him more than a century back, in the temple, as is narrated, and many times during the day when he would go into samadhi, that reality is present here and now for us also. But we only see the outside forms, nama and rupa, and the various characteristics of that form. And these are captured by us through our 5 sense organs, and all these qualities and characteristics are stored in our mind, and we see this world through this glass of this conditioned mind. But we do not see the reality, the spiritual reality which Sri Ramakrishna had, which the rishis had, which Buddha had, which Christ had. And that consciousness palpitating, present in everything, undivided, is full of bliss, as Sri Ramakrishna said. That divine power which creates the whole universe, or which projects the whole universe of names and forms, right from an insect right to this cosmos, is a feminine power which Sri Ramakrishna called the Divine Mother. And when he was knocking on the door through his prayers, through his sadhana, when he was seeking, that was his part. The response came from the other side. He does not say, I saw. He said, the Divine Mother revealed to me. That means there's a door, but the door is locked from inside. What we can do it from outside is to knock on the door. We cannot open the door because the door is locked from inside. But because we are knocking, not once or twice and then we leave and say there's no one in there, it won't open. But we bang on the door desperately. Then the response comes from within. And that's what all these great teachers try to say. Knock and it shall be opened to you. Seek and thou shalt find it. Ask and it shall be given to you. This knocking, seeking and asking is what the individual soul, the jiva, who wants to be acquainted with the reality behind this facade of names and forms, nama, rupa, what we call the world. When he knocks, then response comes from the other side. And suddenly this veil is lifted off. And that reality which is penetrating and interpenetrating and pervading everything is revealed. And it is not like an insentient table or chair, but it's a living consciousness, palpitating. We are alive because of that life force that is inside within us. We are conscious of things outside because of that consciousness that is within us. We enjoy pleasure, we feel pleasure because of that bliss that is inside us. We feel that we are immortal or will live forever because the Atman itself is immortal. We see beauty outside because of the beauty that's inside us. And so when we're not happy with this little happinesses around, little knowledge around, this short existence around, and we want to have that infinite knowledge, that being whom we call God is the very embodiment of that infinite existence, infinite knowledge, infinite bliss, Akhand Sat Chit Ananda, and it is present here and now. The reason why we do not see or cannot experience Him, do not perceive that reality right now, even though our eyes are open and all that, because it is not finely tuned, so to say. It's still pretty gross. And we talked about how when you look at a piece of cloth, say, through a hand lens, magnifying glass, it appears in one way. But when we begin to look through it through higher and higher powers of magnification of a microscope, then, and suppose you took different pictures through each magnification and you put all the pictures together and ask somebody who had not seen how he had acquired the pictures and say, what do you see? He might say, I see different things. But really, it's the same thing being revealed in different degrees of detail because of the instrument that is used. Likewise, when we are trying to explore the inner nature of man, the instrument that we have is this mind. And the more concentrated and the more pure the mind is, the more it will be able to penetrate through these forms and names that's on the external, through the mind itself, to that reality which is called the Atman. Can somebody show that Atman to you? Well, if there is a spiritual giant who can lift your mind up to another higher plane and give you a glimpse of it, like Sri Krishna did to Arjuna, like Sri Ramakrishna did to Swami Vivekananda, and he said, here it is. By his magic touch, all names and forms disappeared, and he saw the divine consciousness in everything, all around. But when his mind came down, then the world came back. But they always experience and always have that awareness that there's a higher dimension of reality, and the mind becomes anchored in that. Now, this is the experiment we'd like to do, exercise, so to say. In this week, try to remember this. I'll put this particular paragraph in the Facebook. You read that, and whenever you get time, at least 2 or 3 times in a day, wherever you are, you don't have to go to any other place. It might be a nice view that you're having on a room, and you say, if I were an enlightened person, here and now, what would I experience? And you try to put yourself in that situation. And you say, okay, all those material things around me will become almost hazy, and inside them I will see a palpitating living consciousness. You can visualize that consciousness as some form of light, both inside and outside. You try to see that inside you, Your own body is full of that light. Your senses are full of that light. And then you see all the living forms. It could be an ant, an insect, of a person. Outside, they're good and bad, high and low, educated, uneducated. All those are differences. But when you focus on the inner reality, you'll find that you lose a little bit of that grip that the mind has on the external forms. So you'll see so many people, but you'll not be judgmental. This is a bad person, a good person, this is whatever. You will be more focused on the oneness behind the many. Samatvam yogam uchyate. Having that equanimity and balance in this way of perception. Ya pashyati sa pashyati. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna says, a person who can have this experience, this type of awareness, is the real seer. Others are only seeing the shapes and form. And when with the open eyes, you see this reality, but don't see the forms. Try to see through the eye, not the physical eye, but through the eye of understanding and knowledge. Here we've got some concept. We are trying to put another filter in our mind. And that filter says, it penetrates through the forms and tries to say, everything is interpenetrated with this level of consciousness, of which I am also part of it. And I'm experiencing a part of that consciousness now. I'm speaking, I'm different from a table or a chair. I'm a living being. I can think, I can plan, I can rationalize, I can, through that consciousness, my eyes are seeing, my ears are hearing. So that consciousness is experienced by me. It's not that we are totally unaware of that consciousness. That God, whatever that power is being experienced by us here and now, but in a very limited way. We would like to experience it in its fullness, in all its glory. And the mind itself is this tool, but not this particular mind. Sri Ramakrishna would say, the mind that is always directed outwards to function through the sense organs and experience the objects of the outside world, and which is identified with this body, which is identified with itself as a conditioned mind, that is called the unripe mind. And the same mind can be purified. Purified means just like the power of magnification of the microscope is increased, likewise this mind becomes finer and finer, sukshma. And then as it becomes more and more subtle, the subtle realities which are present here and now, they become revealed to us. So God is not created. He doesn't come from somewhere outside. He is present here and now, immanent in everything, present in everything. That is one very special contribution and emphasis in the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. He doesn't talk about some Brahman which is somewhere transcendental, far away, and all that. He is always talking about that living consciousness which he always called the Divine Mother, which is present in everything, at every moment, aware of everything, even the anklet on the feet of an ant, so to say. And we are aware of everything in and through that consciousness. We are always in touch with us, just like a wave is always in contact with the ocean. No wave floats in the air on its own. It is in contact, but whether the wave is aware of that connection or not is the difference. For a realized person, even though he might be in a physical living body called a Jivan Mukta, he is always aware that he exists because the ocean exists. And the ocean and the wave are made of the same substance. The only difference is the ocean is infinite, the Jiva is finite. But they have found the identity, Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi. That type of connection is there. So we can approach these discussions in this series of talks through so many words and explanations, but even better than that is for you to go through this little exercise, and we will keep on pushing this in. You see, it becomes a type of meditation. Meditation doesn't mean you close your eyes and focus on the light only inside. You can meditate with your eyes open also, with this intellect, with this eye of understanding that the reality that is in me is also everywhere, in everything. And we are connected and interconnected. And ultimately, we are one that appears as many. The appearance is, the many is only an appearance, just like many waves appear on the ocean surface. They may all disappear, but that does not add anything or remove anything from the glory of the ocean itself. Likewise, the reality which is called God or consciousness is present, omnipresent, everywhere, here and now. It's our ability and capacity to uplift this mind to that particular level that makes the difference. So, do that experiment a couple of times in the day. Wherever you are, you might just stop and pause and say, okay, let me just do a micro meditation and remind myself what is the reality, and it's different from what I am seeing. And you'll find that as you hook yourself to that anchor, the foundation that's the consciousness, the grip of the world on our mind begins to loosen. Just like we'll make a sort of a comparison. For example, you had a dream last night. In the dream, you experienced so many things, good or bad. Could have been a beautiful dream, it could have been a nightmare also. And while you're dreaming, the dream was real and the experiences were real. If you had a meal, you felt that your hunger had been satisfied also. But when we wake up, then we find that you're lying in your bed, you're not traveling in another country. And when you compare the two states, then because of that comparison, we relegate the dream experience as unreal, and we totally forget about it. We don't make a big deal about it. You don't say, hey, that in the dream somebody had passed and now I should still be feeling sad. Or if you are being chased by a tiger, when you wake up, you're looking for the tiger under your bed. No, because of that comparison, we would be able to identify our error, and once the error has been detected, then that experience, its validity and your reaction to that also automatically goes away. Now, why doesn't that happen to us here and now with regard to this world? Because we don't have that second experience. All right, and if we can have even for a moment a glimpse of it, then that comparison will be possible, and you will say, this whole world is like a dream, because there is the reality, something beyond that. But until that experience happens, this will become real, and whatever we take to be real, we respond to that. We react to that. That will force us to react to that. So if people are, most people are, we all are mostly, thinking that this world available to us through these 5 sense organs is the only world that we know. We are born into that, we have lived into this, until now it seems to be real. So a reaction to that will also be real. Having the same dream every night, and you think that really the tiger is there, but really it's all a dream. So that comparison is necessary. Now, what we're trying to do through this experiment that I talked about, this visualization, is even with your eyes open, with the help of this knowledge, trying to put on this new glass of knowledge, a Vedanta glass, so to say, which says that, yes, these names and forms are there, living and non-living, people and everything there. But if I were an enlightened person like Sri Ramakrishna, like a Buddha, like a Christ, like some Rishi, what would I see? I will see these forms, but they will not be as real as I feel this world to be real. So when Swami Vivekananda went to Sri Ramakrishna and asked him one question, have you seen God? And he said, yes, I have seen God, but in a more real sense than I am seeing even you. He adds that second part of that to that answer. So what did he mean then? So I see you here as a physical boy standing in front of me, but I see something more than what my eyes are showing to me. With my purified mind, I can see that inside you is that divine power of the Divine Mother. And throughout the Gospel he will tell, my Divine Mother alone has become the 24 cosmic principles and all living beings. And she is present in all things. Outside, they are good and bad, high and low, educated and illiterate, poor and rich, and young and old, and all those are the forms. But she is the one highest common factor which energizes and functions through all that. Actually, she is calling the shots. And it says, when somebody has this realization, God realization or self-realization, what happens? Does he grow 2 horns? No, he has that deep understanding and experience where he says that God alone is the doer. God means the divine consciousness, that power inside, is the real source through which all activity functions, activities happen through different forms. We are not aware of that power that is operating through us. So we think we are independently working, and that person is also independently. So we like and dislike, we blame and this and all this. But to the enlightened eye of Sri Ramakrishna, he would say, Narayana, God, is really the doer. And he will say, Chor Narayana, Daku Narayana, Dr. Narayana, everything is Narayana, but he might be appearing in the form of the righteous man and also the unrighteous man. Okay. We don't have that experience where we see the righteous and we judge and react. And that's what makes the drama and the play go on. From the other side, it's a nice drama play, a drama in which the divine is the player and he's playing with himself. In our ignorance, we have no idea of the director behind this whole show, and we think this person is my friend, that person is not, and that's because of that sense of reality that this movie becomes very, very real. But if the whole thing is relayed out to you, then you'll say, they are not really two different people. There's only one, just like I have got my two hands. If I'm clapping, and the two hands do not know that they belong to the same body, they might complain, that fellow is hitting me, this fellow is hitting me, why are you doing that? But I don't feel like that. I feel they're my own hands, and I'm actually not beating, I'm having some fun, clapping, enjoying myself. So there are two perspectives of things. That which appears to be a terrible place with all suffering and ignorance and this and that, that is through the point of ignorance. When enlightenment happens, then we see the consciousness present in everything, then this becomes like a movie. That's why it's called Leela, a play. And if you don't like the play, get out from this side, get acquainted with the director, and he will tell you how the whole play is going on. Now, how does that happen? That change will come from us. We have been given certain faculties, a body and a mind, some heart, feeling and emotions are there, a head that is able to rationalize, think, and hands, power of action, heart, hand, and action. If we use these faculties just for the acquisition of these things of this world for food, clothing, and shelter, then we sell ourselves pretty short of what is possible in a human being. The saints and sages say, man is very, very special. Special in the sense that he has that inherent capacity to transcend his limitations and experience himself as that Atman or the self or the consciousness or the divine. That is possible in a human being, not possible in an animal, so to say. And if we don't utilize that power for this higher end, then we are not different from any cows and goats that are there. They also are born, they live and they die, and we also may be slightly better. But the quality is, the result is the same at the end. So, great teachers will say the purpose of life is to realize this spiritual nature, this consciousness of what we really are. So, this mind that we have been talking about now has to be given a change, reoriented for a spiritual purpose. So in the Upanishads, which are the teachings of the saints and sages who had reached that knowledge, but they are sharing that wisdom with us, saying, look, here's the map, here's the compass, you also walk the journey, just like we did, and you will have this experience. One of the experiences that is profound of having, that comes through our self-realization is the idea of ourself as immortal beings. That's a very profound idea, because everywhere we are knowingly or unknowingly trying to live and not die. And this coronavirus has shown one thing. Everyone is hiding, or what you are trying to do, save lives or whatever, is that there is this fear of death. It comes to us in the form of this virus. This virus can kill us. We do not know what to do with it. So, as a defense mechanism, we lock ourselves here and there. But that's not going to save us. Even if this virus did not kill us, death will still come in one form or the other. There's no saving there. So, is it possible to transcend death? Mrityunjaya, transcending death. Yes, it is. So we ask ourselves this question, what is it and how it, rather than burying the head in like an ostrich in the sand and saying there's no problem there, death won't be able to touch me. No, we confront it and say, look it in his face and ask the question, and the answers are also there. So what the teachers say, they say there are two aspects of us all. One, there is this what is called part of the nature, the body and the mind and the ego, part of the Prakriti, made of the three gunas. And there is something beyond this also. This part, the changeable part is called the perishable part. And there is something inside us which is imperishable. The self, the consciousness is that imperishable thing. And one of the results of self-realization, God-realization, when you have that, is we feel that we are that immortal being. And that is a tremendous thing, because suppose somebody says, I have realized myself that even death cannot touch me. Yes, the body will fall. I will not die, my body will die. And I understand that very clearly. Just like I take off this shirt off, likewise I'll drop this body. That's how the Bhagavad Gita, in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna is teaching. But that's an idea. We haven't experienced that. How, if we could have that experience even while living, then there's no fear. Whether it will die because of old age or some accident or some disease, it doesn't matter. It's a torn shirt, I can take it off. Even if it's a new shirt, I can take it off. But I don't lose anything. That type of clarity and understanding comes through a realization. And that's what gives us the inner strength and fearlessness. But in ignorance, when we think, I am this body dies, I'm going to die, therefore this virus or hunger or disease or something can kill me, then we are afraid and we tremble and run away and hide and all those type of things. But no matter, you can run, you can hide, but you cannot hide forever. Sooner or later, it will catch us. So, it's good to face that. Knowledge, spiritual knowledge is what is going to help us. The definition of vidya or knowledge in the Sanskrit, in the Hindu, is that which gives us freedom. Sa vidya ya vimukta. That is knowledge which gives us freedom. We are applying that all the time in the physical world. All whatever we are learning in the universities, it helps us secure food so that we don't die of hunger. It helps us secure so many types of medicine things so that we don't die of disease. It helps us put a house and all those accommodation so that we are not exposed to the extremes of nature, heat and cold. But it's all about trying to preserve this life. But no matter how much we try, with all our scientific advancements, we are not able to go beyond this state. It catches us sooner or later. So this type of knowledge, which we learn in our everyday life, we go through primary school, secondary school, universities, and whatever we learn, is not sufficient to save us from this event that all of us will have to face one day. Because this knowledge is to do with this material world only. So, in the Vedic tradition, they classify two types of knowledge. One is called apara vidya, knowledge that deals with this material world, this changing world, by which we can understand its working, and with that knowledge we can live happily, so to say, have our food, clothing, shelter, and all those type of things. There is another type of knowledge called paravidya, higher knowledge. And that paravidya is knowledge that deals with that imperishable nature, the Atman nature. And that does not come to us through our education system. And that's why the whole world is trembling and shaking, because they do not know that there is another aspect of us, within us, here and now, that is deathless. And if that was there, then we can face all viruses and all problems. Say, nothing can destroy me, nothing can kill me. Whether we know or not, the fact remains the same, that there is an imperishable, indestructible, immortal aspect of us. God realization or self-realization bestows us that knowledge, and that knowledge makes us fearless. Then we can go and do whatever you can, but we have this armor, this protection. And you can enjoy the world if you want, but at the end of the day, when you don't want to play, you can go back in your safe place where nothing can affect us. That is the power, the empowerment or the self-empowerment that comes through realization. Even the realization is not there, a good understanding, a solid, deep understanding of that truth also liberates us in some degree. You're not afraid. Okay, suppose doctor diagnoses me and say, you have cancer. Now, if I did not have this Atman, idea of the Atman, then I will feel very miserable because I will feel this cancer, I will destroy this body and I will die. But because I have at least an understanding of this Atman nature, immediately that knowledge comes and says, well, the body will go, as it will happen to all of us sooner or later. But there is something in me that is not going to die. And that knowledge gives me strength to face that crisis. So, it's not a full realization, but knowledge. Swalpamasya dharmasya. A little bit of this knowledge takes us beyond great fear. So, we have to cultivate this. But it should not be simply having an intellectual understanding. It should translate into a constant striving for that realization, for that experience. So, if you want to have this particular realization means it has become real to me, just like I see this table and chair and people with my eyes, this reality called consciousness is also directly perceived, experienced. That is the type of experience we want to be coming out of this spiritual pursuit. So the scriptures are very, very clear. They say, they teach us the method, they teach us what will work and what will not work also. We can take that guide, that map, and those that compass and navigate ourselves through this. So they say, look, we are born with a slight defect. We are born with a slight defect, and it is because of that defect in us, we are not able to discern the truth. In the Kathopanishad, the sage says, Paranchi Khani, the senses, 5 senses, including the mind, are pointed outwards all the time, not inwards. Vetrinat means it has been, that's a defect. And who has created this? Swayambhu, the self-existent consciousness has sort of, for the fun of this creation, has directed our minds and senses towards outside things. Tasmat parang pashyati na antaratman. Therefore, we are seeing outside things na antaratman. We are not able to see the truth inside us. So in the example of that movie projector that we gave, you've got the screen, you've got this reel of the movie which is the mind, and you have got this light at the back of the hole where the light is shining through. What are we seeing? We are seeing the shadows on the screen. And we are engaged with that, and the shadows begin to move and the drama rolls. How many people turn around and say, and start looking at the beam of light that's coming, and they say, all that is being possible because of this light. If this light was not there, that movie will not roll on. And why am I seeing the shadow? Actually, I should be seeing the light. But see, the defect is that we like to see the shadow, the forms. We don't see the light. That is how the normal mind is constituted. Otherwise, the drama will not go on. But some people, kaschit, dhira, there's a nice word, dhira. Dhi means the wise people or the people with some discrimination, in whom the power of discernment has grown a little bit, who say, okay, these names and forms are there, but is this all? There's something more than that. Those who are not deluded by these external things, they say it's all very nice, but who am I? Who is seeing these things? Who is enjoying all these things? Who am I? Who is knowing all these things? So he begins to ask those type of questions. Such people, seekers of truth, they might be scientists in the external world, or they might be scientists in the internal world, of the internal world. But whatever it is, they have to be seekers of that. Kaschit dhira pratyagatmana maikshat. Pratyagatmana means those, aikshat means who sees, experience this inner self. Rather than seeing things outside, the indwelling consciousness he wants to become aware of it. Not seeing the movie on the screen, but turning around and seeing What's the source of light that is illuminating everything? So here is this world, and I'm seeing this movie. All these names and forms and activities are there. And my mind is that reel through which the light is flowing. But inside there's a consciousness which is illuminating everything. And how do you know it's doing that? Well, you go to sleep. Everything is there, you don't see. Because that's for that moment during that period, this consciousness has sort of withdrawn or switched off. When it wakes up, again the movie rolls on. Who is the one who is experiencing and seeing this? He begins to ask that question. So, some people, not many, 1 in 1,000, Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, 1 in 1,000 turns around and tries to ask that question. Rest 999 are happy with the world as it goes, enjoying, so to say. So, Kaschit dhira pratyagatmanam akshit avrikta chakshu. Avrikta means with the chakshu means the eyes. Here it means all the senses, including the mind. Avrikti means inverted or turned inwards now. Rather than seeing things outside, you turn it inwards and say, who am I, type of thing. Amritatvam ikshan. Amritatvam means immortality. Those who are desiring immortality, what do? They, instead of engaging the mind and the senses in the outside world, they put a restraint on the senses outside, turn the mind inwards, okay, because they understand everything outside is transient, it's going to disappear. He can't hold on to them. Is there something which is permanent? It's not out there, it's inside me. So he makes that effort, restrains the horses of the senses, puts some brakes, restrains this tendency to constantly go out in the world and doing these things. Put some brake. Go to some solitude, some quiet place, away from the distractions. Lock down yourself voluntarily, so to say, because outside there is just frittering away of time and energy, and the whole life gets dissipated like a river that goes into a desert and disappears somewhere. Nothing is there. He turns it around, and then as the mind becomes pure, and that's where the sadhana comes. Okay, as it becomes, then he discovers, just like looking at a piece of cloth through different powers of magnifications of this microscope, it reveals itself more and more and more. Likewise, as the mind becomes calm and concentrated, the power of penetration through these different layers of the mind, so to say, becomes more and more until he doesn't need to see himself in the mirror of this world anymore. He is self-aware that it is that Atman, pure consciousness. This word Atman, the self, Brahman, God, are different words there to help us understand that there is something there of some nature, but the word itself doesn't bring about illumination. The word will not bring about the illumination, no matter how much you will torture the text and how many lectures you listen and how many intellectual gymnastics you will do. Realization is about a transformation that comes through purification of the mind, through which we develop a much purer mind, a more subtle mind. And as the subtlety of that mind increases, just like you tune the frequency of your radio to another high level, then whatever music and sound that is there becomes displayed. You hear. But it's there all the time. It's just that our minds are not tuned to that. So the sages are very, very clear. They say religion is not subscribing to a particular faith, giving yourself a label that I'm a Hindu or Muslim or Christian or I belong to that sect or this sect. When you die, nothing is going to matter. It is realization. It is about experience. You walk the path that's best for you, but don't lock yourself in the secondary details saying, I am this and I am that, and then you get caught in this paraphernalia of the rituals and ceremonies and allegiance to a particular temple or church or prophet or book. These are helping hands. Make use of them, but go beyond them. There is no truth in the book, in the scripture. The truth is inside us, but the scripture will help us manifest that. That understanding has to come sooner or later. In the beginning, in the kindergarten, you will say, okay, these things are important, that the worship is important, that church is important, that temple is important, and all those things. But after some time, you find that they are only secondary details. The most important thing is to experience the divinity within us more and more, manifest it more and more. And so, having that clarity, the scriptures say very clearly, Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhya. This Atman cannot be realized through giving so many discourses, talks. We can take all the scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishad, the Yoga Sutras, and all those things, give most profound interpretations of them, and the meanings and all those things will come when the mind plays around with that, and people say, wow, that is so nice. But that doesn't make us spiritual. It helps the intellect, but not the spirit, so to say. So, right up front, the sages say, this Atman is not to be realized by giving so many pravachana, discourses, talks. Namedhaya, not through too much of intellectual fine-tuning and taking out 10 meanings of the few words that are there. Okay, not through this type of intelligence. Na bahuna shrutena, not through, bahuna means many, shrutena means listening to too many of these things. What we do? Well, through all these exercises, we only play with words and concepts in the same mind, but the mind doesn't go higher. And sometimes that's a nice, fine thing. It was a pleasant, the speaker enjoyed it, and the listener enjoyed it, but there was no spiritual progress, so to say. So you could be listening to these lectures for 30 years, reading the books for 30 years, but you're still in that same place, like the people who are rowing the boat all night, but the boat is not moving because it's anchored to this other shore. What we need to do is to cut and let that progress happen. So this mind has to be transformed. So how does that happen? Here, in the three traditional ways of what religion and spirituality is, of course, forget, it's not talked about, it's not to be realized through rituals and ceremonies and this and that. So what is the essential part of it? We should not rush and say, so these are not going to work, let's throw it out. Then you'll be throwing the baby with the water. Okay, this is a means to an end. This should not become the end in itself. Going to lectures should not become an end to the whole spiritual practice. Giving talks or having some understanding should not be the end. This is a means to end, and this should sort of drive us to the next level of engaging in the actual seeking. What is that seeking? Knocking, asking, seeking. Who is going to open the door? No, I don't have the key. The key is on the other side. And there is somebody on the other side also. But if you knock, that will open. Who is that person? Who is that being? This Atman itself is the one that is going to confer that knowledge. If you want to personalize it, then the Divine Mother, who is the consciousness behind the whole universe, she herself will confer that particular experience. So Sri Ramakrishna said, the Divine Mother revealed to me. She had covered herself in this veil of name and form, and because he asked with great earnestness, Vyakulta is the language he used, there should be sincerity and a little bit of desperation. It's not a 5-minute thing or Sunday thing, I'll go to the church and pray something and then I come back and do the rest of the life engaged with this world. A part of the mind is constantly engaged and hankering for that realization. And that intensity of that hankering increases and increases until one feels that there's no point in this life without this. There's no meaning and purpose and it's all worthless. When that type of intensity is built up, then banging on the door really is happening. And at that point, somebody inside who is there says, okay, it's time to open it up. And then the door opens and the people experience themselves. So, in this Shruti, this scripture says, Yameva esha vrinate tena labhya. Yameva, by those whom esha, this Atman, is sought. So first we must seek. Vrinate means to seek, to ask, to look for, to search. So those who search for it with great intensity, tasya esha Atma, to such people, to such desperate, sincere seekers, the Atma, vivrinate tanum swam. Vivrinate means it removes the covering, lifts the veil. You were looking for me. Here I am. But I was there all the time. But there was this mask. And behind this mask, I was playing all these games. And I'm your very own soul. So this is the essence of it. That through all the studies and of scriptures and spiritual teachings and religious teachings and looking at the lives of those great people who had that particular experience, somewhere deep inside there should be an awakening where we say, I would like to have that experience myself. How do I go about it? Well, just like if you want to learn so many things, we go to the university and take this education system that teaches primary school, secondary school, university professors. I'm going to take the help of them. That will fast track my education process. Of course, I could do all this learning on my own, but it might take me many, many lifetimes maybe to acquire that knowledge. Here it comes to me in a very, very systematic way. Likewise, spiritual knowledge is also available there. And those who wish can approach that, take that knowledge, but they have to act on that, because that knowledge itself will not confer realization. It will be nothing more than a map and a compass. Sri Ramakrishna says, okay, there is this book called the Almanac. And if you look at that, on different days, it will forecast what will be the rain in this monsoon season on this particular day and all those things. He said, if you take a page of that book and twist it and squeeze it, not a drop of water will come out of it. So no matter how much we twist and turn the pages of the scriptures, no realization will come out of it. Realization is not there. God is not there, truth is not there, it's inside. But they can help for you to see a little bit of yourself, get a little glimpse of it. Just like I do not know how I look because I can't see my own face. So what do? I go and stand in front of a mirror. And if the mirror is clean, then I get a good reflection out of it. If it's dusty, hasn't been cleaned for 50 years, then I maybe see something ghostly figure in there. Depending on the clarity, purity of the mind, of this world, we get a glimpse of it. But that image is not me. I might look at the image and the image looks beautiful and I deduce from that I am also beautiful. But any change that I'll make there will not be reflected on me. For example, if I take a shaving blade and try to shave that image on there, I don't get a shave. But in our everyday life, when we are seeking happiness, we are seeking doing something like that. We are trying to make this change in the body, change in the mind, and all those things, thinking that change will happen in Atman. It doesn't happen. We have to make that subjective change. So we'll make an effort again and again and again, and when we find that it's not happening there, then the effort is then interiorized, personalized, subjectified, and we say, this is where the truth is. The world is only a mirror in which I see myself. But I am pure and perfect as the Atman. In the body, I see a reflection of myself. That's another very interesting subject, and that is on the subject of avidya, the ignorance, how this out of ignorance a sense of I-ness comes, how we like and dislike and how we cling to this human body. Avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. Abhinivesha means clinging to life, trying to make it remain in this world, not die. And this is a product of spiritual ignorance. And this world right now we can see across the whole globe is that wonderful play of that one, abhinivesha, clinging to life because of this threat of virus. So we can sit in our little homes and shake and shiver and try to now and then peep and say, is it still there or not? And when we feel that the virus is still not there, then we'll come out. We had gone into a lockdown, the virus also went into lockdown. We come out, it will also come out. How do we deal with this in a spiritual way? Can we deal with that? The spiritual teachings, Gita, Upanishad, Bible, are some sources of self-knowledge which we can empower us and point us in the right direction to find out how we can have those tools by which we can overcome this fear and ultimately transcend that death itself. So this Atman is to be So today we discussed what the essence behind this whole world, the foundation behind every living and non-living thing is a spiritual consciousness. Sri Ramakrishna and saints and sages sometimes will personalize it and say this is Vishnu or this is Shiva or it's the Divine Mother, because it's a living thing. It responds to our prayers. We can communicate. It might not talk to you back. It will talk to you through some other form. But yes, it responds. Because when you knock, it answers. All of these great teachers will say that this, our higher self, is extremely responsive. But we sometimes have our back turned to it. We are busy looking the other way. Well, the truth is behind us or within us. First part is to restrain this outgoing tendency of the mind in the senses, turn it around, read the scriptures and realizations of people who had, and see how that realization had transformed their life. And by constantly reading and understanding, thinking about it, from within a desire will come that I too would like to be in that type of space where I can have that knowledge where there's no ignorance, bliss where there's no misery, and life where there's no death, and that inner peace and beauty, because that's what I see in those who have realized it. And when that idea gets hold of you, then your grip of the external world on your mind begins to loosen, and the mind that is freed from that can be now directed towards that inward quest. And in that, we try to get hold of some maps and compasses, so to say, that will help us in this journey. And that from there starts a spiritual practice or the sadhana. And in there, that very clearly tell that the essence is self-realization, that experience. Use the map, but that map is not that country. The map, you can read the map, become a very good tourist guide. You might not have never been to that country. So you're just parroting what is recorded there. That is not what religion is. That's what not spirituality is. That's only just subscribing and living on some other word, somebody else's word. But they can help us. Use that, but go beyond. Wherever we are, we need to proceed. And if that is the core idea that is driving us in a spiritual direction, then going to the temple, having all these festivals, Ram Navami, Shivratri, Easter, Diwali, and all those things, can be turned into an exercise that will help us progress. But they should not themselves become an event and a festival to enjoy, have a good time, and then it's all over. So there are means to an end. They should not become an end in themselves. So having understood that, the real work is now to do the inner work, the inner cleansing, preparing this mind to be the instrument. How do we fine-tune this mind now? How do we make it subtle? Everything comes down to that now. God is there here and now. I'm not seeing it. This mind is the one that is become a obstacle to me. But I can't jump out of it. I have to deal with this mind, but befriend it or use it as a spiritual tool for spiritual realization. Okay, for yoga. So that art and technique is taught by those who have had that experience themselves. And all these spiritual disciplines of japa and meditation and prayer and worship and everything are designed to systematically, step by step, develop that capacity of the mind so that we are self-empowered, that inner tools are developed, it's not external tools, and then that tool, the inner purified mind, reveals the truth which is beyond the mind also. That is the whole crux of spiritual life. And we are all in that journey, like in a school. Some are in kindergarten, primary school, secondary school, and university. We are all going through journeys. Some are ahead, some are behind. But we can help each other in that spiritual seeking. The goal is not to remain in this education system forever. Go beyond this. Use that knowledge and enjoy that spiritual knowledge that comes through our spiritual striving should empower us to make that connection with that underlying spiritual consciousness that is in me, that's in everyone. Dive deep into the ocean and you find it's absolutely peaceful there. But on the surface, the waves will toss us up and down, and we can't do anything about it. We can whinge and cry and complain, but up here, all these changes will happen. This is the nature of the world on the surface of the ocean. But if you want real peace, that is deep within ourselves. How to develop that capacity to be able to dive deep is what spiritual sadhana, spiritual experiences will talk to us. And next Sunday, we'll talk about the special type of mind, agraya buddhaya, that special buddhi, which is one-pointed, concentrated, and subtle, by which the deeper dimension of our sense, ourself, can be experienced. What do the sages talk about that, and how do we develop this? So, using the mind to go beyond the mind so that we come face to face and experience the reality that we are. So, that particular little exercise that you'll do a couple of times a day, sit down and visualize that consciousness interpenetrating everything. Do it as vividly, as powerful as possible, and then we will discuss that, and it will help you understand the topic that we are going to discuss next Sunday. Until then, keep safe, and we'll meet next Sunday. Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om shanti shanti shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.